Welcome back, guys. Today we'll start part 2 of our series of shaker box making, and I wanted to take this episode to tell you a little bit about the experience of making them and what goes into it. I'd shown you in the first video of making of assembling and getting ready to make the bands and the tops and the sides of that. Well, today I want to explain a little bit about all of that, so hang on and join us. First thing I wanted to talk about was safety. It's important to maintain safety in the shop. Remember, safety in the shop is your responsibility. In the early 19th century, finding ways of storage could be quite challenging. And one solution arrived in a very practical way by the Shakers, who were very simplistic. And that system was bent wood boxes, the Shaker oval boxes that we know today. These boxes, when not in use, were stored inside of one another. They nested, and they were a way of taking up less space. As we saw earlier, the construction of these boxes begins with the bands, the wooden band. Fingers are drilled on one end of the bands and holes drilled for tacks. These tacks secure the bands once they are folded around the form. The fingers serve to reinforce the box as they're tacked around the band. The other end of the band is formed into a thickness tapered from that 1/16 inch to down near zero. It provides a smooth transition from around the inside of the box so that there's no distinguishable or noticeable stand out of the joint. In order to form these bands and bend them around the form, they have to be boiled. They have to be heated up in a bath of hot water for about 20 minutes. Once they are soft enough, they can be bent around the form into the desired form, desired shape. And then they're held together with copper tacks. Once you have bent these forms, you place them in shapers that'll hold their oval shape for you, and then let them sit overnight. And after drying, these forms are fitted with a bottom and a top that is cut to the shape of the box and the band itself. And once that's done, they're tacked into place with toothpicks or wooden pegs around the edges. You tack them into place with the copper and tacks and the wooden toothpicks, you're basically finished. When we talk about bending wood around a form, generally that form is what you need to get the shape that you so desire. Once you form these, you use a little anvil made generally of a piece of copper pipe to tack the tacks on the bands and the fingers to keep them in shape. This anvil is generally that, like I said, that piece of pipe that you just clamp into place and use to brad over your nails. One more useful jig is the templates that you use to draw out the fingers and mark the holes for the drilling. The tools for making shaker oval boxes are not many. It's generally a saw, like a coping saw, good sharp razor knife, a hammer, and some other tools that are needed are wire cutters, side cutters to trim up the wooden pegs. You'll need a sanding block and sanding paper. Only 4 things are needed for making a shaker oval box. You'll need the veneer for the bands, which is about a 1/16 of an inch to do the sides and the top band. You'll need a 1/4 inch piece of bottom and top. You'll need copper tacks for the appropriate size and hardwood pegs to secure the tops to the bands and the side. When assembling these boxes with the bands there, the grain needs to run horizontal around the box. If it were to run up and down when you tried to bend it around the form, it would probably snap and break. So watch the grain. An important thing to remember about the veneers is that you'll have to select which is to be the outside and which is to be the inside. If you bend a piece of veneer around the form, you can tell right away that which should be the inside. If it feathers outward, that needs to be the inside because it will feather out and will tend to split over time. When you boil your bands for 15 or 20 minutes, go ahead and set up the rest of your equipment that you're going to need, your forms and your tacks and your pegs and your bending equipment, your tacking equipment. This wood, after you boil it for 10 to 20 minutes, it dries rather quickly, so you don't have much time to go ahead and form and tack that band. once you bend the wood around the form, hold it in that place, release it just a little bit so you can get it off of the form and taking it over to the anvil to tack. But one thing I forgot to say about bending it around the form is that once you have it around there, be sure to hold those fingers so that they don't let loose. Those fingers can split real easy. And also at the top of the, you can mark with a pencil the two parts together there so that you'll have an index line in order to line it up when you go to put it on the anvil. When tacking the bands, make sure the tack is directly over the anvil so it will cinch the box. There's two ways that you can use to dry these boxes. One is once you set them aside, wait for a couple of days. Once you set them aside, wait for a couple of days and come back to them and they'll be ready to work with. The other way is if you want to rush, you can use your oven. Place them in the oven at about 200 degrees for about an hour, and that'll dry them sufficient. Sand the tops and bottoms on the inside to where they're very smooth. This is very important before you really go much further there. You want to sand them down and make sure that they're clean. And you can do the outside too there, and that'll save you a lot of time. That's right after you tack them, and it'll smooth them up even. Just really, once that's done, you can drill the tops and the bottoms with the boards, the bottom and top boards, so that you can insert the pegs. At this point, when you're drilling the holes for the pegs, I would not take that top back out. Once you drill it, I would go on and get the wooden pegs. Generally, it's a toothpick, and go ahead and insert those in there and break a part of it off and drive it in with a hammer. Don't drive hard, just tap it in until it won't go any further. You'll be able to tell the difference when it bottoms out. Once you have those tacked in place, go ahead and sand around there and sand those parts smooth, or if you can use a little hand planer, small hand planer, you can plane it down, or a good sharp knife, but be very careful. And once you have your bands assembled, tops and bottoms, and the top and bottom boards installed into the bands, you are pretty much through. Finish is up to you. Thank you for watching this short tutorial. If you like this, please subscribe. Like it and subscribe and comment.